screen here. Oh, I saw such a beautiful picture of Yashoda and Krishna. So beautiful. Okay. So anyway, let me check if I can see myself here and we'll get started. Yes, we are live for the past 2 seconds. All right, so we'll get started as usual with the prayers to the spiritual master. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Okay, so we will get started with Brahma Samhita. And welcome Chitra Mataji and Garima Mataji to the call. And so what have we been talking about in Brahma Samhita? That's the question, right, that we should address first. And so let's see. Let me bring it up here for all of you, and we'll just take it from there. All right, here we go. And let me know when you're able to see my screen. And you should be able to see Sutapa when this comes up finally on your screen.
Yes, Mataji, you are on Facebook.
Double. Okay, there you go. Yeah. So we'll go to Brahma Samhita. 5.15 is what we're going to do. And I think I'm having severe problems with the video. I can see the video breaking up and it's going to only cause problems. So I'm going to stop my video here. Okay. And so Brahma Samhita, and I just want to do a quick recap because it's been 3 months since we have done the Brahma Samhita. And so we had started with Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Right? So which basically talks the Brahma Samhita are prayers of Lord Brahma to Krishna when he's born. And Krishna gives him initiation, and then he bursts into these fantastic prayers. So Brahma Samhita is a place where Krishna's abode, among other scriptures, Krishna's abode is very beautifully described over here. And as Vaisheshika Prabhu usually says, that not only do we tell you what Krishna looks like, we also tell you where he lives. And we also describe the place where he lives. So those beautiful verses are going to come later on, but some of the conceptual things are about his abode and his residence we already covered. And so his residence, Golok Vrindavan, looks like a lotus petal, right? And it talked about in the middle, there is Krishna and surrounded by, and the petals are the places where the gopis, etc., live there. And you know, the description was like, you know, he's the most luminous personality, even in the Golok Vrindavan. And then we also talked about there was a quadrangular place, which is a very difficult thing for us to imagine what it is. But it was talking about that Golok Vrindavan is also protected on all sides because we don't want people who don't have the qualifications to enter into Golok Vrindavan, who are not qualified to do that. So then it was, you know, of course, it talks about Krishna's energy, the illusory energy, or Maya, as we call, which is the one that manages this material world, right? But then the emphasis here was not on Maya, it was more on Rama-devi, who is nothing but Radha herself. And so who is Krishna's Shakti, right? Krishna's energy is Radha. So that way, Radha and Krishna are not separate. They're one and the same because the energy and the energetic cannot be separated out into two, right? So then the creation process was described because remember, Lord Brahma has to create this material world. He's the engineer of this world. So he has to create this material world and that knowledge on how to create. So when Brahma was born from the lotus that sprung from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. He's born from there. And when he's born, he doesn't remember anything at all as to why he's here, who is here, why he's here, who has created him, what is he supposed to do, he doesn't know anything. And so he starts walking down the lotus stem, and which connects him back to Vishnu. But then even as he goes back down, he doesn't see anything. Then he comes back up, because to be able to see Vishnu also, you need to have the required qualification. And as he's bewildered and confused about doing this, it takes about 100 years of his lifetime to do that. And so he's very confused as to what am I supposed to do. And then he hears the word two-letter word or two-syllable word he hears. And that is, of course, God who is telling him, because at that time, there's nobody else in the universe. He's the only one. So, and the two words are ta and pa. So which become tapa. Tapa means do some tapasya. And so he sits down and does penances for a long time. And after that, Lord appears before him, and then he initiates him, gives him the Gayatri mantra. And from that, he remembers the process of how to create, because he has been creating the day, before, like that. So he knows how to create, and he now knows how to create. And of course, once he gets that information, he also understands what Krishna is. So he bursts out into this transcendental poetry, which is the Brahma Samhita. And Brahma Samhita has got 100 chapters in it. We are only doing the 5th chapter. And the reason we are doing 5th chapter is not because we have done chapter 1 to 4. It's that this book was lost completely. And only 500 years ago, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu retrieved this from a temple in India, in Kerala. And Adi, I'm forgetting the name. Does anybody remember? Vaishnav, do you remember? Adi. It's not Adi Purusha. Anyway, so he goes to one of the temples then, and he retrieves it. And remember, in those days, you don't have a book like you have a book here, right? 18 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. They're all written on palm leaves. And so those palm leaves, he gets them copied. And you can imagine it's not an easy thing to copy things on a palm leaf. You have to sit with a stylus, you have to scratch it, and then you have to go and dry it so that the color comes. And you have to be very careful, because there's no scratching and there are no erasers there. So you have to do that with full concentration. You have to get the people who do that. They are qualified people who do that, craftsmen who do that kind of work. But anyway, he got them copied into many and then distributed those copies. And then, of course, many, many years later, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur translated that into English for us. And that's why we see he was a scholar beyond par. And that's why we see even the English of Brahma Samhita is a very difficult one. You should sit with Brahma Samhita and a dictionary side by side to understand some of the difficult words here. And and later on, Srila Prabhupada, of course, propagated this Brahma Samhita. There are some very beautiful verses from Brahma Samhita, which are recited in all the ISKCON temples when the Gaura Arti, when the Darshan Arti happens in the morning, when people are when the curtains are raised and we see Krishna in all his glory. So we sing some verses. Those beautiful verses are going to come later. We also pick up verses from Brahma Samhita every Saturday at ISKCON Silicon Valley, and we recite all the 62 verses, one after the other. Brahma Samhita verses are also recited before an initiation ceremony happens, because they are very auspicious. They glorifying the Lord. And they also happen, at least some verses from there we will read before a food grain ceremony also. And so Brahma, who is charged with creating things, so he will remember. He remembers how to create. And then, of course, here he also talks about the creation process, right? And then he said that how does the creation happen? To create this material world, Krishna does not involve Maya, because Maya is inferior. Maya Devi is inferior in the sense that, she's handling the mundane, although she's also a devotee of the Lord. She just has this thankless task of taking care of us here and punishing us if we go here and there, like that. So, but Krishna's main relationship is with his spiritual potency, which is Rama. And so what he does is that, when he has to create, and there's a verse that will come later on in Brahma Samhita, where we say Angani yasya sakalendriya pritivanti. So it says that Krishna can do the work with using any of his senses. For example, we need to have a nose to smell. but Krishna can smell with his hands also, right? We need mouths to eat, but Krishna can eat with his eyes also, and that's how he eats the bhoga that we offer him. And so what Krishna does is that when he has to create, right? So when human beings have to procreate, they have to use certain organs in their body. But Krishna doesn't do that. When he has to create this entire nature, this srishti, then he just casts his glance. And through that glance, what happens is that all the souls which are inside his body, they through his glance, they get into Prakriti, which is Maya. He casts the glance at Rama-devi, actually at Radha, and then Radha passes it on to Maya. And that is how this whole creation process happens. And so that glance of Krishna goes by the name Shambhu or Shiva. And that is why sometimes you will see people saying that Shiva and Parvati create this material world. And the reason for that is that Shambhu or Shiva is nothing but the glance. That Shiva or that Shambhu is, there are many aspects of Shiva also. So this aspect of Shiva, which is involved in creating, and dallying with Maya and creating this material world via all these entities which are there, that Shiva is known as Shambhu. Okay, so we talked about that. And then we also talked about, this is the whole creation process which is going on there. And then there are some glorification verses that he's doing. So every now and then, anybody who meets the Lord like a half an hour ago, and the Lord shakes his hands, and that's what he did. You will read that in Bhagavatam also, that Krishna shakes his hands and says, Bhadram te, all auspicious things to you. And so, so obviously he has just met Krishna. So whatever he's speaking, he'll stop that and glorify Krishna. Of course, he's glorifying Krishna all along, but he deviates from the process of creation, and he's now talking about that he's got thousands and thousands of hairs, he has thousands of avatars, and then he talks about Narayan, and we talked about Narayan when we talked about Mahavishnu. And from the pores of the Vishnu, the bodies of Mahavishnu, all these universes, millions and billions of universes come out. And I had walked you through the structure of our universe, the universe in which we are living. And we had talked about the Bhumandala, the heavenly planets, the Netherlands, and so on and so forth, right? And then again, he continues the creation process again, and he's talking about how from Mahavishnu, all these, from the pores of his skin, how these universes are coming as if they are sperms, and they are converted with, the elements, which is earth, via fire or water, ether, and so on and so forth, and how they combine with each other, and how they are, the world is created. So then after the universe is created, then what Mahavishnu does is that a portion of Mahavishnu enters, into this universe also. So now remember, we were talking about that there is this river, which, Viraja river, which separates the mundane world, the material world, from the spiritual world. And on this Viraja river, which is also known as causal ocean or Karan Sagar, on that causal ocean, Mahavishnu is lying down. So you have to imagine he's lying down there somewhere, and this Viraja river, and from his pores are all these universes coming. And now we take one universe from there, okay? There are many universes there. We just pick one universe, and we look inside that universe, and we see that that universe is half filled with water. Well, you might say that the Viraja river is also filled with water. So what's the difference between the water there and the water here? Remember, the water of the transcendent, the water of Karan Sagar, causal ocean, or Viraja river, they all mean the same thing. That water is transcendental water. It is not our water that we see here. The water that we see here is mundane, it's worldly water. Okay, so Vishnu is lying there. From his pores, a universe is coming out, and then if you look inside that universe, it's half filled with water. But that water that you see over there is in our material world. It is called Garbhodak, right? Garbhodak. And so there's a Vishnu lying there also, and he's known as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, one who is lying down on the waters of, creation and or conception, how you conceive. The waters of conception is where he is. And from this Vishnu's navel sprouts a lotus, and on the top of that lotus is the place where Brahma lives. right? And we had talked last time about Brahma's planet and how he comes down to our Bhumandal planet to do some activities. We were talking about what a long commute Brahma has from all the way coming from his abode to do take care of some activities on our planetary system like that, right? So again, what he also does is that he has created all these separate universes, but he wants to have his presence made there also and felt there also in each of his universe. So just as countries can have an embassy, a country can have an embassy in all the other countries. Similarly, Vishnu also has an embassy in all the universes, right? And what happens in an embassy? If you are living in India and there is an American embassy there, if you go inside the American embassy, all the rules of America are applicable there. So it's like a little America inside of India. Similarly, if there is a Pakistani embassy in India, then in that little house, then all the rules of Pakistan are applicable there, right? Similarly, if an Indian embassy is here in USA, then it's little India inside of USA. So similarly, Mahavishnu also creates an embassy in each of these universes. And because it's an embassy, then the rules of his original abode, which is the transcendental abode, will apply there, which basically means that inside each universe, there's a small area which is still transcendental. And that place inside every universe is known as Shraddha-devi. Shraddha-devi is white. And why is it called white? Dweep means island. Why white island? Because the sand is white. And also, there is a ocean of milk which is there, and that's why milk is white. So it's called Shir Sagar, and that dweep is called Shweta Dweepa. And there in that embassy there has to be an ambassador. So that ambassador or that expansion of Vishnu is known as Kshirodaksha Vishnu, or the Vishnu who's lying on the ocean of milk. Now, there's something very special about this Kshirodaksha Vishnu, because the Kshirodaksha Vishnu has two forms. In one form, he's lying on the ocean of milk, which is in this embassy inside every universe. And you might ask that question, where is that embassy located? Is it in India? Is it in Pakistan? Is it in America? Is it on Jupiter? Is it on Saturn? Where exactly is that embassy? And the answer to that is that embassy is on the polar star, what you know as the polar star, or in Sanskrit, we call that as the Dhruva planet, the Dhruv Loka. So on Dhruv Loka is the place where Kshirodaksha Vishnu lives. And because Dhruva Maharaj was such a fantastic devotee of the Lord, that he wanted a kingdom better than Brahma's. So when God has to give him a planet which is better than Brahma's planet, now Brahma's planet is material. You have to give him something better than a material planet, so you have to give him a spiritual planet. So that is why Dhruv Maharaj, instead of getting a planet bigger than, God can always create a planet bigger than Brahma's planet, right? And give it to Dhruv, like, okay, fine, I got you something better than what your grandfather has, right? He doesn't do that. He doesn't also tell Dhruva, okay, now go to this another universe and you can manage the whole universe. I'm going to give you a universe bigger than this current universe, so you are better than your grandfather. God doesn't do that. He gives him the real gift, and that is that he gives him the Dhruva planet, which is transcendental, so that he gets to be close to Vishnu and he gets to worship him, continue to worship him there as well. Okay, so that is one role that he plays. He's Mr. Ambassador, lying on that Kshirodaksha Vishnu. And he also is there in everybody's heart as Paramatma. So that voice that tells you, the voice that we sometimes ignore, and that voice that we sometimes listen to, is the voice of the Paramatma. Depending on how advanced we are in our Krishna consciousness, we will choose to listen to him, or we will choose not to listen to him. Like that. Okay. So that was in a nutshell on what we have talked about in the last 14 verses. So today we are continuing on with the process. So remember, Mahavishnu is there and he's breathing, and out of his breath are coming all these universes. And he's expanding himself and he's becoming Garbhodaksha Vishnu at the bottom of the universe. and he becomes Shraddha-devi Vishnu somewhere towards the top of the universe, not exactly the top, but somewhere towards the top. He's there, right? Now he has to create Brahma also, right? Because Brahma has to create this universe, and he's also got to manage the passionate mode that we have. He has to manage that, right? He also has got to create Shiva or Shambhu from there, right? And that Shambhu has to, go and do take care of the mode of ignorance in this material world, right? So Vishnu has to do those things. And so this verse number 15 is telling us how that gets done. Okay, so let's go to verse number 15 here, bringing it up on your screen. Vaman asrajat Vishnu, Dakshinan Prajapatim, Jyotirlingamayam Shambhum, Purchadeshadavashrijat. Vaman asrajat Vishnu, Dakshinan Prajapatim, Jyotirlingamayam Shambhum, Purchadeshadavashrijat. Vaman asrijat Vishnu, Dakshinan Prajapatim, Jyotirlingamayam Shambhum, Kuchadeshadavasrijat. Vama Angad. Ang means a limb, right? Ang means limb. We are all Angas of Krishna because we are part and parcel of him, we are his limbs. Vama, you have to remember, it means left. And asrijat, and Angat is limb, so left limb. Asrijat, he created. Jat is the Janam Dena. Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. Dakshin Angat. Anga again is limb, and Dakshina means left, right, sorry. Right? Vama means left, and Dakshin means right. Prajapatim is Hiranyagarbha Brahma. So Prajapatim is also another name by which Brahma is addressed. Why is he called Prajapatim? Prajapati is one who takes care of the Praja, who's a protector of the citizens. He's also one who creates the citizens. So here Prajapatis are usually entitled with the job of creating population. And Brahma is the first one to create the population. He doesn't have a wife, but he has got the capabilities to be able to create things from other limbs. For example, the 4 Kumaras he creates from his mind, like that. Okay. So Brahma, Prajapatim is the name for Hiranyagarbha Brahma. Jyotihi Linga, the divine masculine manifested halo. So number 1, it's divine, means it's transcendental, it's masculine, it's a man, it's a male, and it's a halo, it's a shine, right? So there's effulgence there. So Jyotihi Linga. Mayam, compromising. Shambhu, Shambhu, as we know, another name for Lord Shiva. Kurcha Deshat, from the place between his 2 eyebrows. So from between the place of his 2 eyebrows, right? And then Avasrijat. Avasrijat means Srijim, Srijam, Srijamyaham. He says that is a process of creation or Shrishti, right? Avasrijat. So let's see. We talked about earlier about Mahavishnu expanding and then becoming Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu inside a universe. And now this verse is saying the same Mahavishnu. So the same Mahavishnu, what did he do? He created Vishnu from his left limb. Left means, what's the Sanskrit for left? Can somebody tell me?
Vama Angatmat.
Vama.
Vama. Yeah,
Vama.
left means Vama. Okay,
Yeah.
and what does right mean?
Dakshina.
Dakshina, right? Dakshina. Okay, as we know, Uttar Dakshina, the Dakshina. And so he's saying that from his left limb, he created Brahma, the first progenitor of the being. So he's the first of all the human species kind of thing, right? He's a demigod, but then those who walk on 2 feet and have eyes like that. And from his right limb, which will be Dakshinangat, from his life, right? From his right limb, Vishnu from the, sorry, he created Vishnu from, I'm so sorry. He created Vishnu from his left limb. And remember, this Vishnu is the one who's going to take care of the mode of goodness, right? And then Brahma, the first progenitor of being, from his right limb, right? So from his right hand side, he's creating Brahma. From his left, he's creating Vishnu. And from the space between his eyebrows, he's creating Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo. So that halo or that light or that glance we were talking about, that is Shambhu here. So here, let us see the divine Purusha lying in the ocean of milk. This is purport by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The divine Purusha lying in the ocean of milk. So what's the name of the divine Purusha lying in the ocean of milk? Can somebody tell me? What's the name of the divine Purusha who lies in the ocean of milk?
Kshirodaksha Vishnu.
Shraddha-devi Vishnu.
Very good, right? And who's the regulator of all the individual souls? What is the name by which he's called when he's the regulator of all individual souls? When he's regulating.
Paramatma.
Paramatma, you got it right. Very good, right? So he's saying that divine Purusha is lying in the ocean of milk is Sri Vishnu, right? Is Sri Vishnu, because when Narayan or Mahavishnu expands, there's no difference between the Vishnus that come out of him and the original Vishnu, right? So now he's saying that Kshirodakshai Vishnu is Sri Vishnu, and the Hiranyagarbha, the seminal principle, the portion of the Supreme Lord, is the prime progenitor who's different from the four-faced Brahma, right? So he's saying that don't think that Brahma is the original creator. First creation happens through Lord Vishnu, okay? This same Hiranyagarbha. So there might be a question like, what is the meaning of seminal principle, right? He's talking about seminal principle. The principle, what exactly does it mean? So the word seminal can mean semen, right? As you know, in procreation, that is one way also. Another meaning of seminal, and they all apply in this context. Another meaning of this is that when it is something, either it's a work of art, it's a moment, it's a figure, anything that, is going to influence things that are going to come later, right? That is also known as seminal principle. For example, I can write a book. I can come up with a theory, I can write a book. And based on that theory, people several years down the line can expand on that theory and come up with more books. So what I have done is I've created something that's going to have effect and will be able to influence developments that people are doing later on, like that, right? So similarly here also what Krishna is doing is that he's just creating Brahma over here, right? Through his seminal principle. And what that does is that this principle is going to now apply to others who are being created, and they will further go and do the creation. So in the Brahma Samhita, creation is a big topic, and there are different levels of creations that are talked about. Creation that Krishna does, creation that Mahavishnu does, creation that Brahma does, and then creation that Brahma's children do, like Daksha and so on and so forth. So they talk about primary, secondary, tertiary creations in the Brahma Samhita, right? So we are talking about the first creation that Krishna is doing, which will have an effect on subsequent creation, which will lead to creations later on as well, right? So now they are saying that this divine masculine manifested halo Shambhu is the plenary manifestation of his prototype Shambhu. So what is a prototype? Prototype is something that is created in the beginning. So few verses later when I was talking about, and today also when I was talking about that when Mahavishnu has to create, he does not look and engage in any relationship with Maya to produce, right? Instead, he casts his glance. So that glance is known as Shambhu, right? And then that same Shambhu, a portion of that, like an incarnation of that Shambhu, gets created from between the eyebrows, right, of Vishnu. And so this verse is saying that this divine masculine manifested halo Shambhu is a plenary manifestation of his prototype Shambhu. Plenary means complete in all respects. So whatever is there in that original Shambhu that was used in creating, that same thing is over here as well. And we have described that nature already. Described means in the previous verses, we have already talked about it. Vishnu is the integral subjective portion of Mahavishnu, right? So here we are talking about this Vishnu that we're talking about, and this Vishnu was created from the left limb. If you remember, it says on the top, Mahavishnu created Vishnu from the left limb. On the left side from the left side of his body, he has created Vishnu, right? Hence, he's the great lord of all the other lords. So there was a question that Aruni Mataji was asking me a few sessions ago about, we call Vishnu as also a demigod, and Brahma is also a demigod, and Shiva is also a demigod. So, then is Vishnu, on the material plane, or what Vishnu are we talking about, right? So here we are saying that, he's coming from Mahavishnu. He's coming from Mahavishnu, and he's coming from a particular side of Mahavishnu. He's coming from the left side, and I'll talk a little bit about that, right? But he's saying that because this Mahavishnu who is created, right, because he's an integral subjective portion of Mahavishnu. So he's an incarnation of Mahavishnu himself, right? So hence he's the great lord of the other lords. So he's saying that there are three lords in this world: Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. So he's saying that because Vishnu is a portion of Mahavishnu, so that is why this Vishnu that you see in this universe is a lord of the universe, but at a higher level, with sort of Brahma and Shiva reporting unto him at a lower level, like that. Why? Because Shiva is an expansion, coming from the other Shambhu that was a glance of Krishna, right? That is at a lower level, and from that glance here, another thing has come out, and which is the Shiva who manages the material, the mode of ignorance, right? And then, of course, there is Brahma, and Krishna has created Brahma from the right-hand side of his body, right? So we'll talk about that as to why, if Brahma is born from the right-hand side, why does he have to be inferior to Vishnu? We have to remember that Brahma is a soul. Brahma is a soul, and Vishnu is not a soul, in the sense that he's not a soul and a body separate. Vishnu is completely transcendental, whereas Brahma is actually a soul, right? Krishna will create that soul, or Vishnu will create that soul, give that soul, a lot of powers to be able to do certain things. But Brahma is not Vishnu, and Shiva is also not Vishnu. They will have characteristics and powers to do certain things like Vishnu, but they are not Vishnu. So there is difference. And later on, Brahma Samhita will talk about that difference, where it says, Shiram yatha dadi vikare vishesha yoga, right? So he will say that sanjayate. So he there subsequent, like I think verse 30, 35 or something like that, we will talk about that. He says that how you take milk and then you change milk. But through some chemical process, you change milk and it becomes curd. Right? So you change it and it becomes curd, and curd, although it is coming from milk, is not milk. So you cannot make rasagollas out of curd, just like that. Or wherever milk is used, you cannot make kheer out of curd, right? So there's a difference, although it is coming from milk. So, and that is what it is, that although Shambhu is coming from Krishna, but Shambhu is like curd and Krishna is like milk. So there is some difference between them. Brahma, but at least, if you're looking at a hierarchy, then Vishnu will be at the top, Shiva will be below, and Brahma will be far below. Why? Because Brahma is a soul. Brahma is a soul. Vishnu is made of Vishnu Tattva, Shiva is made of Shiva Tattva. So the substance is different, and then our Brahma is made up of soul, plus he has got a material body, right? So it's made up of our material Tattva, so to speak. So because Vishnu, among the Trinity, which is Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh in this material world, don't confuse them with Kshirodakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, or Mahavishnu. Don't convert. Those are Purusha avatars. Those are Vishnus, at a higher level. But in addition to this, there is another Vishnu in this mundane world, and he's part of the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And out of those three, Vishnu is at a higher level. Shiva is next. and then Brahma is next. And this is what this verse is saying, that because he's coming, from there, he's a subjective portion of Mahavishnu. He's a portion of Vishnu. He's the Lord of all the other lords. So if there are any other lords in this material world, they'll all report into this Vishnu verse, right? The progenitor Brahma, who creates all the people in this material world, he starts off, kicks it off, and Shambhu are the dislocated portions of Mahavishnu. Hence, they are gods, and you see the god is with a small g, with delegated functions. So it's just that, they don't have functions of their own. Vishnu has some functions, and he tells you, okay, now you go and manage ignorance. Okay, you go and manage the mode of passion. Brahma, you do that, and Shambhu, you manage ignorance, right? Now, here comes a very interesting example that Prabhupada is giving. And he says that when I say Prabhupada, here I mean Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada means one who has attained the lotus feet of the Lord. So we say that for both Srila Prabhupada, our A.C. Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Prabhupada, and as well as to his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, they are both addressed as Prabhupada. So by his own potency being on the left side of Godhead. Can you give me the name for Krishna's potency? What do you call Krishna's potency?
Radha.
Very good, right? And you go to any temple, and where do you see Radha is on the right side of Krishna or on the left side of Krishna?
Right side.
Right hand side, right? Right. So here they are saying, hence they got his own potency being on the left side of Godhead. So since Radha is on the left hand side of Vishnu, or in this case, our, the Purusha Avatara. So he's saying because of that, Vishnu, the one from the Trinity, right? From the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, I'm talking about that Vishnu appears in the left limb of Mahavishnu from the unalloyed essence of his spiritual chit potency. Now, clearly it is saying that this Vishnu that we see from the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, that Vishnu is coming through his energy, spiritual energy, Radha, which is on the left side of his body. And what's the Sanskrit for left?
Vama.
Right? So he's coming from that's the left-hand side. Okay. And then Vishnu, who is Godhead himself, is the inner guiding oversoul of every individual soul. So this Vishnu who is the inner guiding oversoul of every individual soul. Can you give me the name of this Vishnu who is the inner guiding oversoul of every individual soul? From inside, who guides you? What would be the name of this Vishnu?
Paramatma.
You got it, right? He is the personality of Godhead described in the Vedas as being the measure of a thumb. So when he's there in our hearts, how big he is, he's like the size of a thumb. Now, sometimes when we look at the scriptures and we see the scriptures, these kind of questions will come, and I haven't yet found an answer to that. Like, whose thumb is it? Is it my thumb? Like in my heart, God will be of my thumb. And in a child's heart, he'll be in the size of a child's thumb, in a giant's heart, like that. And what about people who don't have thumbs? What about snakes? He's there in their heart also. So what size is he? So I don't have answers to that question. But, we see this as mentioned in the Vedas, so we take it with faith and say, this is what it is. He's the nourisher, so he nourishes the soul. And the karmis, elevationists, right, who just want to be elevated to higher and higher planetary system, they will worship this Paramatma who is in our heart. The karmis who want some results will worship the Paramatma in their hearts. And what are they looking for? They are looking to get raised to a higher planetary system, get mystic powers to be able to do this, and that. So they will worship this God in the heart as Paramatma, the Lord of sacrifices, or Yajneshwar. And the yogis who desire to merge the identity in him. So people who are looking at the impersonal form of the Lord, they will meditate on him, as Paramatma lying in the heart by the process of meditative trance. So both of them will do meditation, and the karmis will get mystic powers after their death. They have powers when they want to die. But after they leave this body, they will go to a higher planetary system to enjoy more materialistic things, right? And the yogis, they will merge into the effulgence because that's what they wanted. But they could all be focusing on the Paramatma in their heart, right? But because the intention was different, the intention with which you were worshiping the Paramatma in your heart was to, it's like, okay, I just need some point to focus. Okay, so there's a Paramatma figure that I'll install in my heart and I will meditate on that all the time. With the intention and the purpose is that I will finally merge into the impersonal God. And then I can abandon this Vishnu, which is in my heart. I don't need him. I got what I wanted. So I'm using God to achieve my purposes, right? But then there are bhaktas also who worship and meditate on the Lord in the heart. For example, Narad Muni meditated on the Lord in his heart. But his intention was not to merge with the impersonal Brahman. He was actually meditating on Kshirodakshai Vishnu in his heart, right? And so he got a very different result. So whenever we are doing this yoga, Ashtanga yoga, and which is Ashtanga yoga is what people will do. The yogis will do Ashtanga yoga, yam, niyam, pranayam, pratyahara, all those kind of 8 limbs are there. So they would do that for the purposes of attaining something. A person can do Ashtanga yoga also. What's wrong with yam and niyam? They are telling you the do's and the don'ts. Don't we have do's and the don'ts? We have the 4 regulative principles, right? And the do's is 16 rounds. So we have do's and regulations. We are doing that. But the intention for us is to be able to get out of this material world and serve the personality of Godhead in Golok Vrindavan. Whereas the karmis are doing it to their elevationists, they are doing it to be elevated to a higher heavenly planets. And I had shown you the heavenly planets and in the previous lectures, which you'll find on Facebook. And you can go and do a recap there. And the yogis are again doing the same thing, but the purpose is very, very different. So whatever your aim is, whatever your inner thing is, Krishna is Bhavgrahi Janardhan, he will know what you're doing, like that. Okay. So interesting thing in this particular verse is they're talking about the left and the right? Left ring and the right ring. And so what does that mean? Why is that emphasis there? So you saw that here they said that on the left-hand side, you see Radha. And Radha is his spiritual energy. So Radha, and that is why from that side he creates Vishnu. And because the creation is happening from that side, this Vishnu is transcendental. Brahma, he creates from his right-hand side, which is Dakshina. So why is it called Vama? If Vama was left, why is it Dakshin? I understand Dakshin as Uttar, Dakshin, Purab, and Paschim, right? Why are they using this for left and right? So now here's how it comes. Okay? If you are facing, now imagine, close your eyes, and if you are facing the rising sun, okay? Close your eyes and imagine you're facing the rising sun. Keep your eyes closed and tell me, which direction are you looking?
East, Mataji.
You are looking in the east, okay? And then now I want you to turn your head and look towards your right-hand side. And which direction will you find there?
South.
And what is south called in Sanskrit?
Dakshin.
Dakshin, right? So you see, that is why the right over here is being called as Dakshin. Now, for those of you who understand Hindi, now you can open your eyes, sorry. You will, for those of you who understand Hindi, you will know that left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Okay, Varshana Mataji, you are from the army background. Daएं, baएं, thumb, right? So although we say left, right in English, in Hindi it is right, left, right, daएं, baएं, thumb. It goes in the opposite direction. It's not like how it is done in England, right? Left, right. So दायां, बायां. Can you understand? Right, left, दायां, बायां, from where it is coming? Daya is the perverted form of Dakshina. And Baya is the perverted form of Vama. So you see? Now, where else do you hear about this left and right? Where else? Do you hear about it someplace else? What do you say? Yes or no? Any other place? No?
Mataji, our eyes are also right and left.
Okay. But I'm talking about Vama. All right. So let's begin. Sorry.
Vaman Dev. Vaman.
Vaman Dev is there. Yeah. And I didn't find anything for why he's called Vaman about, right or left, but here. Dakine nitai chan mame gadadhara. Right? From where is this line? Tell me.
Guru Puja.
Shastri, Guru Puja. Guru Puja.
Kate advaitashini vasa chhatradhara iba jaya jaya gora chande arotik sho.
Gora Arti Mataji.
Jana. See, I've been doing it for 10 years. And today you got the connection, right? Today you got the connection. What does it mean, Bame, right? Bame Gadadhara. Bame means on his right hand side is Gadadhar, right?
Left.
On his left, sorry. On his left is Gadadhar, right? Bame Gadadhara. And then on his right hand side is Nitai. So again, you see who is Gadadhar? Gadadhar is none other than our own Radharani, right? And so Radharani again is there on the left-hand side of Gora. So Vama is there. And so you will see that the same thing is followed here also, that when there is, it's a very interesting thing. The wife, where does the wife sit? Does the wife sit on the left-hand side? Or on the right-hand side?
Left side.
Left Mataji.
Always?
Left.
Left.
Always left? So sometimes the wife is also asked to sit on the right-hand side.
Yes.
And so it depends on what you are doing. So now you have to remember, left is Radharani. On the left, you do transcendental activities. And right is where Brahma is the creation and all those kind of things, right? So during the marriage and all that, they will ask the wife to come on here at certain sections. And whenever you're doing tapasya or doing any kind of transcendental activities, like you see when Vaisheshika Prabhu is giving initiations, where does Nirakla Mataji sit? Like that. So they will arrange the sittings to happen that way. And so just remember about the left and about the right. Sometimes you ask people also, like, why do men, even in other countries, the wife is on the left-hand side of the man. Why is it like that? So a mundane principle also, they do like, in the old days, what people used to do was, you like somebody's wife, you just kill the man and take away his wife, right? That's what they used to do, the barbaric civilization. And so what the men did was, if they had the wife by them, they would keep the wife on the left-hand side and they would have the sword on the right-hand side, so that if somebody comes to take away the wife, their right hand, which is usually the working hand, is free to ward off and fight off and things like that. So they usually keep the wife on the left-hand side. But always remember, for transcendental activities, they will keep the wife on that side. And also, if obviously this is one reason, again, even while doing yajnas, etc., he has to do certain things, right? And if a wife is sitting there, she might hinder the progress for that. But nevertheless, we have to look at the mood of how things are, right? The mood and what is the intention and the thought process behind whatever you are doing, right? So like when we go to the temple and we bow down before the deities, our left side is towards the deities, right? Which is good. It's a transcendental side, as we saw in this verse, right? One of the reasons that we also do that is that our heart is on the left-hand side. So I want to give my heart and put my heart towards the Lord. So that's why I'm bowing down. So go for the intentions and look at the intentions which are there. Okay. I mean, if you go to deep into the Vedic ritualistic things can become very mind-boggling. And this is Kali Yuga for us. Don't have time for all those ritualistic things. All that we need to do is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And now I have exactly 2 minutes to go because I have some work-related thing to solve. And Varshana Mataji has held her hand for last 1 hour. So I'll pick up that for her question. And more questions always addressed.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, you said from the middle of the, eyebrows, Shambhu, Shiva is being created. And then from Shiva, Shambhu is, Shiva and Shambhu are different.
So we have to understand the process of creation and the process of appearing, right? So originally, Shambhu gets created from Mahavishnu through his glands, right? That is Shambhu. And now this Mahavishnu has come into our universe as Kshirodakshai Vishnu, right? And from Kshirodakshai Vishnu, from between the eyebrows of that Kshirodakshai Vishnu, what is coming out? A portion of this Shambhu. A portion of this Shambhu is coming out. And that is why, because that is Shambhu and not Vishnu, that is why Shiva is at a lower position here. And then later on, you will see in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Brahma gets angry, so Brahma first creates four people. And who are they? 4 Kumaras. And Brahma is a progenitor. He wants to create populations. He says, okay, now go create population. The kids tell them, no, we're not doing that. If we are into devotional service, this is nonsense. So Brahma gets angry. When he gets angry, from between his eyebrows, Rudra is born. Again, that is, Rudra is a manifestation or incarnation from Shambhu. So, a person can get incarnated, but what is the vehicle through which he is coming and being delivered to this universe? It could be anything. It can come through the eyebrows of Brahma, it can come through the eyebrows of Vishnu, it can come through anybody's eyebrows. We also, when we get angry, we bhukutitani, right? We do this eyebrow thing even when we are angry. And so there is a little Shambhu that gets manifested. There's anger, right? Anger is more of, so like that.
And Mataji, another thing, you just use the word merging. That does a human being, when they leave their body, do they merge into Krishna? Is there any concept like that, Mataji?
It's too late you're asking this question after so many years. You
Mataji,
tell me what is merging.
I feel that Lord, when this annihilation takes place, all the Atmas, all the souls go into Krishna, keeps them with him, inside him. And then when the creation happens, again it comes.
That is not merging. That is not merging. That has happened because you died. Yeah, you died a natural death, right? When we specifically talk about merging, and we especially talk about the Gyanis merging, as is mentioned in the paragraph, we are talking about people who are making concentrated effort. And they are saying that, I need to, there is a soul, there is a effulgence, and I just need to go to that effulgence. And they merge. And that they don't merge with the effulgence. They stand there, and after some time they get bored and they come back again into this material world. That's the merging we are talking about. And at Prabhupada, this is such a nice example that these souls are like fishes. The fishes are flowing in a river. The river goes and joins the ocean. So you say, I merge in the ocean, but you still remain a fish. You don't become the ocean. You see?
Thank you,
so we'll never remember that part. Yeah, remember that fundamental thing that we are jivas, we are parts and parcels of Krishna, and we are happiest when we are dovetailed with Krishna. I remember I had shown you that dovetail joint like that. So we are best when we are dovetailed. We are not Krishna. Okay, I will have to take.
I just very, very quickly. I just wanted. This will only take a second.